On the penultimate night of their national convention, Democrats making clear that, like a good neighbor, Tim Walz is there. Welcome to the No Spin Zone. Graph's Grievances begins right now. Democrats have a problem. White, working-class voters have fled their party. And last night, the third night of their four-night national convention, Democrats did their best to show that they care and are fighting for all Americans, not just those who live on the coasts and went to elite universities. Central to this outreach, Vice President Kamala Harris's selection of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. The former social studies teacher and high school football coach is not a tall, slim, tanned model type we have come to expect from politicians on both sides of the aisle. No, Walz looks and talks like a typical American dad. But unlike the fake hypermasculinity Trump pretends to embody, Walz is so secure in his own identity, he proudly hunts and embraces background checks. He has coached testosterone-fueled teens and served as the faculty advisor of the Gay-Straight Alliance at his high school back in the 1990s. And now Walz is elated to serve as vice president to potentially the first woman president.
Kamala Harris is tough. Kamala Harris is experienced, and Kamala Harris is ready. Our job for everyone watching is to get in the trenches and do the blocking and tackling. 1 inch at a time, 1 yard at a time, 1 phone call at a time. We got 76 days. That's nothing. There'll be time to sleep when you're dead. We're gonna leave it on the field. That's how we're gonna fight. And as the next president of the United States always says, when we fight,
That is a man who is not only comfortable in his own skin, but is in politics because he wants to fight for everyone, including the forgotten communities where he is from.
Now, I grew up in Butte, Nebraska, a town of 400 people. I had 24 kids in my high school class, and none of them went to Yale. But I'll tell you what, growing up in a small town like that, you learn how to take care of each other. That family down the road, they may not think like you do. They may not pray like you do. They may not love like you do, but they're your neighbors. And you look out for them, and they look out for you. I represented my neighbors in Congress for 12 years, and I learned an awful lot. I learned how to work across the aisle on issues like growing the rural economies and taking care of veterans. And I learned how to compromise without compromising my values. Then I came back to serve as governor, and we got right to work, making a difference in our neighbors' lives. We cut taxes for the middle class, and we made sure that every kid in our state gets breakfast and lunch every day. So while other states were banning books from their schools, we were banishing hunger from ours. We also protected reproductive freedom because in Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. And even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
That is what it's all about. Taking care of your neighbors, looking out for your fellow Americans. A big theme of Walz's just 16-minute speech was freedom, a core value of this great country that Republicans have co-opted and bastardized.
When Republicans use the word freedom, they mean that the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. Corporations free to pollute your air and water. And banks free to take advantage of customers. But when we Democrats talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. Freedom to make your own health care decisions. And yeah, your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall. Look, I know guns. I'm a veteran. I'm a hunter. And I was a better shot than most Republicans in Congress, and I got the trophies to prove it. But I'm also a dad. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe our first responsibility is to keep our kids safe.
Walz giving the biggest speech of his life and more than rising to the occasion, reminding us all that we are in this together, and the vast majority of Americans are good, hardworking people who want to help their fellow Americans. As branding genius Donnie Deutsch proclaimed, like a good neighbor, Tim Walz is there. But Walz wasn't the only way Democrats attempted to reach out to the flyover states last night. The VP nominee was preceded by none other than television legend Oprah Winfrey. The self-made multi-billionaire making her first appearance at a national convention to endorse the Harris-Walz ticket in the town that made her a star. And while you might think, how does Oprah appeal to white working-class voters? The reality is that Oprah is a lifelong independent who has shied away from politics for most of her life, with the exception of endorsing Barack Obama. In addition, Oprah is one of a handful of people known by one name because her television show and magazine and network appeal to not just black women or white women or rich women or poor women or straight women or gay women. Oprah appeals to all women and frankly has credibility with many men.
There are people who want you to see our country as a nation of us against them, people who want to scare you, who want to rule you, people who'd have you believe that books are dangerous and assault rifles are safe, that there's a right way to worship and a wrong way to love, people who seek first to divide and then to conquer. But here's the thing. When we stand together, it is impossible to conquer us. In the words of an extraordinary American, the late Congressman John Lewis, he said, no matter what ship our ancestors arrived on, we are all in the same boat now. Congressman Lewis knew very well how far this country has come because he was one of the brilliant Americans who helped to get us where we are. But he also knew that the work is not done. The work will never be done because freedom isn't free. America is an ongoing project. It requires commitment. It requires being open to the hard work and the heart work of democracy. And every now and then, it requires standing up to life's bullies.
Oprah reminding us that we must always fight to preserve our freedoms against the bullies in this world, but also noting that most Americans are good patriots who want to help their fellow brethren.
I've seen racism and sexism and income inequality and division. I've not only seen it, at times I've been on the receiving end of it. But more often than not, what I've witnessed and experienced are human beings both conservative and liberal, who may not agree with each other, but who'd still help you in a heartbeat if you were in trouble. These are the people who make me proud to say that I am an American. They are the best of America. And despite what some would have you think, we are not so different from our neighbors. When a house is on fire, we don't ask about the homeowner's race or religion. We don't wonder who their partner is or how they voted. No, we just try to do the best we can to save them. And if the place happens to belong to a childless cat lady, well, we try to get that cat out too.
Oprah taking that slight dig at J.D. Vance before calling on all Americans to vote their values.
This election isn't about us and them. It's about you and me and what we want our futures to look like. There are choices to be made when we cast our ballot. Now, there's a certain candidate that says if we just go to the polls this one time, that we'll never have to do it again. Well, you know what? You're looking at a registered independent who's proud to vote again and again and again because I'm an American and that's what Americans do. Voting is the best of America. And I have always, since I was eligible to vote, I've always voted my values. And that is what is needed in this election now more than ever. So I'm calling on all you independents and all you undecideds. You know this is true. You know I'm telling you the truth, that values and character matter most of all. In leadership and in life. And more than anything, you know this is true, that decency and respect are on the ballot in 2024. And just plain common sense. Common sense tells you that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz can give us decency and respect. They're the ones that give it to us. So, we are Americans. We are Americans. Let us choose loyalty to the Constitution over loyalty to any individual. Because that's the best of America. And let us choose optimism over cynicism, because that's the best of America. And let us choose inclusion over retribution. Let us choose common sense over nonsense. Because that's the best of America. And let us choose the sweet promise of tomorrow over the bitter return to yesterday. We won't go back. We won't be set back, pushed back, bullied back, kicked back. We're not going back.
Oprah is the best of America, the best of humanity, and with that amazing speech, she made the case that irrespective of your background or political ideology, if you are a good person who believes in decency, respect, and the Constitution, Kamala Harris is your choice for president. Also making appeals to moderate white voters last night, former President of the United States, Bill Clinton. The son of the South and former Arkansas governor making this pointed contrast between Harris and Trump.
2 days ago, I turned 78, the oldest man in my family of 4 generations. And the only personal vanity I want to assert is I'm still younger than Donald Trump. Kamala Harris is the only candidate in this race who has the vision, the experience, the temperament, the will, and yes, the sheer joy to get something done. What does her opponent do with his voice? He mostly talks about himself. He's like one of those tenors opening up before he walks out on stage like I did, trying to get his lungs open by singing me, 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 me. When Kamala Harris is president, every day will begin with you, 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 you.
The former president, with his folksy charm, mocking Trump's narcissism and assuring moderate and independent voters that Harris is a smart choice for them. A point hammered home by Transportation Secretary and former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg.
Donald Trump rants about law and order as if he wasn't a convicted criminal running against a prosecutor. As if we were going to forget that crime was higher on his watch. Talks about the forgotten man, hoping we'll forget that the only economic promise that he actually kept was to cut taxes for the rich. And don't even get me started on his new running mate. At least Mike Pence was polite. J.D. Vance is one of those guys who thinks if you don't live the life that he has in mind for you, then you don't count. Someone who said that if you don't have kids, you have, quote, no physical commitment to the future of this country. You know, Senator, when I deployed to Afghanistan, I didn't have kids then. Many of the men and women who went outside the wire with me didn't have kids either. But let me tell you, our commitment to the future of this country was pretty damn physical. Choosing a guy like J.D. Vance to be America's next vice president sends a message. And the message is that they are doubling down on negativity and grievance. Committing to a concept of campaigning best summed up in one word: darkness. Darkness is what they are selling. The thing is, I just don't believe that America today is in the market for darkness.
Democratic rising star Buttigieg highlighting the meanness and small-mindedness of Trump and Vance, while explaining that their dark vision is not one that most Americans share or want. Finally, the young father and first openly gay cabinet secretary calling on all of us to embrace a better politics.
At its best, politics can be empowering, uplifting. It can even be a kind of soul craft. The existence of my family is just one example of something that was literally impossible as recently as 25 years ago, when an anxious teenager growing up in Indiana wondered if he would ever find belonging in this world. This kind of life went from impossible to possible, from possible to real, from real to almost ordinary in less than half a lifetime. We get to choose our president, we get to choose our policies, but most of all, we will choose a better politics. A politics that calls us to our better selves and offers us a better everyday. That is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz represents. That is what Democrats represent. That is what awaits us when America decides to end Trump's politics of darkness once and for all.
Things really do get better if we fight. And as Vice President Kamala Harris will say tonight with her keynote address, when we fight, we win. Stay with us for daily coverage of all the action out of the DNC. There'll be a special edition of Graf's Grievances tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, share, and join me tomorrow for more.